So I like to start this class with this video, which is related to the importance of lesson planning. And later on, we're going to watch another video with elements from planning. And we're going to contrast. We're going to contrast the elements from the planning in the video and the elements we saw last class. Okay? So let's begin. Here we go.
Hello, this presentation is going to cover this section on lesson planning, and what we're going to do is to have a look as to why we go about planning a lesson, what do we actually put in it. We'll create an empty lesson plan pro forma, and then having done that, what we'll do is to fill in that lesson plan for a particular teaching point. So our starting position is going to be, why do we plan lessons at all? There are a number of reasons why we need to plan a lesson. The first and foremost, perhaps, is that it's going to create a logical sequence for our lessons. If we didn't have a lesson plan, it is quite possible that we could go all over the place and it would become confusing for the students. By having this plan, what we've created is a structure that we can work from. So in effect, the lesson plan itself is a working document. Then we can refer to it at various times in the lesson. If ever we're not quite sure what we're supposed to be doing next, we can just take a quick look at our plan and it tells us where we should be going. Another important reason for planning your lessons out is that it creates a record, a document of what has actually been taught, and this can be very useful if we're ever questioned as to whether we've covered the syllabus in all its details. Then we've got this lesson plan that shows that that has been done. The final reason, the main reason why we plan a lesson, is that it can be used for someone to cover your lesson. For example, if you created your lesson plans for your next week and for some reason you can't get into work, then somebody else could use your lesson plan to make sure that the students don't lose their sequence of lessons. So these are some of the reasons why we...
All right, so I will make a pause here because I want to recover some stuff that he said. So basically, as he said, a lesson plan is a document. It's a paper. But this paper is important because in it, we can follow us as teachers. It's our own resource. As in soldiers are guns, for us, lesson plan is our guns. It is our gun, right? Because that's the way we're going to be teaching. We are going to mark all the things that we need for our classroom, the procedures, the aims, and so on. And obviously, a lesson plan might help you in case you cannot have a class. So imagine that today I wouldn't be able, for any reason, maybe teacher Marcos, if I show him my lesson plan, hey, today we're going to be looking at this. These are the materials. These are the procedures. So can you please give the class for me? So obviously he will be able to do it because the things that he has to follow in order to have a successful class. Okay, so I just wanted to recover that. Let's continue.
Why we plan a lesson, what do we actually put onto that plan? Basically, there are two areas that we need to cover on our lesson plan in order for somebody else to be able to take that plan and adequately cover our lesson. Firstly, we need to put some general information about the class that is being taught, so how many people are going to be there and so on and so forth. And secondly, what should happen during the actual lesson. So what does our lesson plan actually look like? So let's have a go at creating a lesson planning document.
Right, so he said two important things. The background of the classroom, what information we have about the class, and what is going to happen during the lesson, okay? So I'm gonna record another video. So far so good, Francisco. Do you have a question, a comment about the video? It's too short, but anyway, it's important to recover, right? No problems, Francisco? Clear. Okay, good. So I might continue with the next video, which is related to the things that a lesson plan has. This is very important, and it's the most important because we're going to contrast the ideas from the video with what we saw the other class, okay?
document itself needs to contain some general information about the class. For example, the name of the teacher, the date and time of the lesson, what level of class is being taught, and in what room. How many students are we expecting? This is important when we've got things like photocopying and materials to do. What is the context of the lesson? In other words, what is the lesson actually about? What vocabulary or grammar point is this lesson covering? And sometimes it's also useful to write out what the focus of the lesson is. So in effect, the context of the lesson is telling us the grammar point. For example, that might be the present continuous tense, whereas the focus is telling us how we're going to go about teaching it. Another example to illustrate this, let's imagine that we were teaching a starter class about colour. Then our focus could be the way in which we're going to teach them about colour. So we could be using clothes, or we could be using fruit and vegetables. So here the context would be colour, and the focus would be fruit, vegetables, clothes, or whatever.
Okay, so far we have the first part of what is the content of a lesson plan. Okay, we saw the other class, basically this, not like completely, okay, just we were talking about the class stuff, but do you remember how we call that in TKT, Francisco? What is this part called in TKT? He was mentioning about the expected number of students, class level. Do you remember exactly the name for this, for the TKT? Are you still there, Francisco? Are you looking for the answer? Okay, so do you remember what we were talking the other class about? What is the name of this, but in TKT? Okay, exactly. Class profile. Okay, that is basically what the name of this in TKT. Okay, we were talking about the class description. Now, let's continue with the next part from the video so that we can contrast the same ideas from TKT with this one. This is a little bit longer, so pay lots of attention, please.
Then we have a set of objectives and aims. Here, the learner objectives relate to what we're hoping the students are going to be able to do by the end of your lesson. And quite often that can be a useful way of writing out what the objectives are. So we would start the sentence, by the end of the lesson the students should be able to, and then a list of 2, 3 or 4 items that we're expecting the students to be able to do by completing this lesson. The learner objectives are different to the teacher aims. The teacher aims are what you are expecting from that lesson itself. Now, when you first start teaching, quite a normal aim might be to complete the lesson successfully, to get through the whole thing without having any problems. As time goes on and you become more experienced, then what you would expect is that these teacher aims become more and more specific. So some examples of things that might be in your aims here might be things like to improve my board work, to increase student talk time, and to reduce teacher talk time, and so on and so forth. The next section is going to relate to...
Okay, so do you remember that TKT only consider aims? For TKT, aims are everything, are achievements and objectives. Okay, we have here learner objectives and teacher aims. For TKT, what are the names for these two, Francisco? For learner objectives and teacher aims. Do you remember? Remember, this video is for contrasting. It's the same, just with different words, but it's exactly the same. Main aim, subsidiary aims, and personal aims. Very good. In this case, we don't have subsidiary aims. We only have the main aim, which is what the students are going to learn at the end of the course or at the end of a lesson. And the teacher aims is the personal aim, what you want to improve. It's the same, it's exactly the same, just with another name. Okay, let's continue then. Very good, Francisco. You have been studying, I
what
can
we
see.
might call anticipated problems. And they'll be anticipated problems for both our students and for ourselves. The types of problems that we may anticipate from our students is that they will have difficulties with pronunciation, they may have difficulties with the level of the grammar and being able to put it into context, and so on and so forth. Anticipated problems for ourselves, types of problems that we can put in here would be things like making sure that we stick to the plan, making sure that the focus of the lesson is maintained throughout the whole lesson, and so on and so forth. So a set of problems, anticipated problems for the teacher and for the students. Now, because this is part of the planning process, if we've anticipated problems, then it's fairly reasonable to assume that we thought about what we can do if those problems do occur. So one of the examples we had here was that we were anticipating problems with their pronunciation. So a solution to that problem would be to do some form of drilling to help them with the pronunciation problem. One of the problems we had with the anticipated problems with the teacher was that we wanted to make sure that the lesson flows smoothly, and so we need to refer to our plan throughout the lesson. Now, this doesn't mean that we stand with a...
All right. Okay. So I will continue, Francisco. So with this, we have the anticipated problems. It's exactly the same in TKT, right? And we have the solutions. So nothing changed. It's exactly the same.
With a piece of paper.
Okay.
What we're going to do now is to fill out.
Go next video. It's exactly the same. We don't have to contrast. And this is the last video for today, Francisco. Okay, and because we're going to be talking about the procedures. Hold on a minute. Is this one? So that we can contrast and you can a little bit analyze, okay, what we can do in for procedures. Remember that this is basically the last step.
To fill the actual... So now we're going to fill the actual procedure of the lesson plan out itself. We mentioned at the start, the first thing we do is to get some general information about the class that we'll be teaching, and then in order for someone to be able to cover our lesson, we need to present enough information in our lesson plan that they can actually carry it out. What I'm going to do is for each stage of the lesson, I'll indicate what I'm going to do in the lesson, and then we'll cut away from that to have a look to see how that will actually be achieved. So our lesson is going to be based on a 45-minute lesson, and the first phase is going to be the engage phase, and it's going to be a straight arrow ESA lesson. I'm going to take approximately 5 minutes on my engage phase, and in the interaction box what I'm going to do is to put down what I think is going to be the major overall interaction during that particular part of the lesson. There are 3 choices that we can use in this particular one. Either the students will be talking mainly to the teacher will be talking mainly to the students, or the students will be talking to each other. For my particular plan, the students on the whole will be talking to me. So, what am I going to do in my engage phase? I'm going to ask the question, what are you doing right now to generate the subject-verb agreements between a number of different subjects and their verbs? So,
okay, so we're going to analyze from this, Francisco. We have procedure, phase, timing, and interaction. interaction. Just we need to go beyond. Okay, so procedure is the same name, right? In TKT, we also have procedure. Yeah. Now phase. We don't have phase in TKT. What can be this phase? Exactly the stage. But more than a stage is a stage aim, right? So in this case, it's just to engage. Obviously, in TKT, they are going to ask you for the stage aim, which is a little bit more complete. Okay, to engage students, to participate, etc. Timing, is it the same in TKT? Francisco, is it the same? Timing? Yes, right. And interaction. Do we also have interaction in TKT? Students to students, teachers to teachers, pair work. Yes, right. Just like sometimes it can be different, like pair work, group work. You can change. It's basically the same, but with different words. Okay, very good, Francisco. So I just started with these videos just to analyze and contrast so that we can look more or less about your concepts. Remember that concepts are important for the TKT. Okay, so yeah, as we were talking the other class, okay, these are some of the main components of a lesson plan. We saw them, some of them in the video, not all of them, because as I told you, many of them change. Okay, but that's it. I left you a homework as far as I remember without this black stuff here, but you had a homework. I was going to ask you, Francisco, did you do it? Did you do this activity, Francisco? Excellent. Very good. Thank you for preparing your answers. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the answers. Here are the answers, and then we're going to compare yours with the ones that I have. Very nice class profile, which was the example basically. Number two, timetable fit. In the previous video, they mentioned it, but they mentioned it more like context, right? But right now, we're not gonna look at it as a context. Okay, it's like the continuous, what they saw before and what they will need to continue watching. For example, students have already worked on simple descriptions of people. So this is basically what they have already seen about this topic. Main aim, excellent. Number four, subsidiary aim. Number five, assumptions. Number six, anticipated problems. Number seven, possible solutions. Eight, timing. Nine, procedure. 10, stage aims. 11, materials. And 12, interaction patterns. Excellent. Excellent, Francisco. So you have 10, 10, 10, 10 at complete 10. Okay. So before we start with the sample test, Francisco, do you have a question about these elements from lesson planning? Do you have a doubt? Do you have like a comment, an example of something about this topic? Okay, I hope it is clear, Francisco. Now we're going to go to your sample test. Okay, I'm gonna read the instructions and tell me if you have a question or a doubt. For questions from 1 to 7, look at the lesson plan components and the three extras from lesson plans listed A, B, and C. Two of the extras are, two of the extracts are examples of the component. One sentence is not. Choose the letter A, B, or C of the sentences, which is not an example of the component. Okay, so you have 7, and in this we have the components of the lesson plan. Two of them fit perfectly, but one of them doesn't have to do with this component. So your job, Francisco, is to read and find out what is the component that doesn't match. Okay, Francisco, is it clear? Remember to find keywords. Remember to think about the context per each content, the context of procedure. Maybe I know that you have an idea in your mind now what procedure is. Okay, so are you ready to start, Francisco? All right. So you have 10 minutes maximum to do it. So please go ahead. 10 minutes. If you have a question or a doubt, please let me know. Okay, Francisco, let me tell you that just in time. You did it exactly on time. Very nice, Francisco. I hope this wasn't that difficult. Okay, so we're going to analyze your answers and then we're going to check the Cambridge answers. Okay, for you, personal aim is C, to check understanding of new lexical items. Yes, because it's not something that you improve as teachers, right? Remember that these are for us. So it's not a procedure, it's what you need to improve. Number two, assumptions. You say A, learners may come from China, Spain, and Thailand. I don't know, maybe this can be an assumption in a context, Francisco. Uh-huh. Uh, the text will be useful challenge for this group. Could be. Okay, we're gonna analyze that one because that was a hard one because an assumption can be whatever you can say about a group. Okay, procedures, you say that is letter B. The teacher prepare a PowerPoint presentation. All right, because this is at the moment before the activities. Okay, number four, class profile. You say C. The learners are all reliable. Yeah, nothing to do with that, right? You cannot say that students are reliable. Mm-hmm. Uh, very good. Number five, anticipated problems. It's letter C according to you. Very good. I agree with you. Number six, interaction patterns. For you, it's B. Self access. Not right because it's pair word or is the manner you're going to be working. And timetable fit, it's C to introduce a new language. Not exactly because timetables fit is what you saw before, right? What they already know. Okay, very good, Francisco. I like your answers, but let's look at Cambridge answers. Number one is letter C, correct. Number two, A, very nice, Francisco. Number three is B. Number four is C. Number five, it's C. Number six, it's B. And number seven, C. Excellent. The 100%, Francisco. Very good. You are a master in lesson planning. How do you feel that you got 7 out of 7, Francisco? How do you feel? Even though you spend much time doing this, you got it. And that's the most important thing. Very nice, Francisco. I will be more than good if I were you. Okay, very good. So now we're going to continue talking about planning, but now we're going to divide planning into two categories. So let's start with this new class, Francisco, with this new unit. Remember, we are in Module 2, Part 1, Lesson Planning and Use of Resources for Language Teaching. In this case, the name of today's unit is this one, Planning an Individual Lesson or a Sequence of Lessons. Okay, so now, we have seen sorry we have seen the elements of planning as a whole for every single planning or for most common planning, but now we're going to think of two different types of planning: individual lesson or a sequence of lessons. Okay, and I think we're going to start with individual lesson. Okay, when we plan an individual lesson, we must take into account and aims and how to achieve them, the shape of the lesson. What do I mean with the shape? Okay, if it is the class is more structural, is for developing skills, etc. Okay, so basically, as it is an individual lesson, you need to focus on what you're going to look or what is the form, the shape of the class. If you're going to be talking about grammar, if you're going to be talking about skills, if you're going to be talking about pronunciation, every single thing, as it is just one class, let's say, you need to think about that. The techniques you're going to be using and the connection between the aims of the lesson and the procedures, which are the activities and tasks we use to achieve them. So it's not very different from the normal lesson planning, right, Francisco? But you will see that it is. As the name says, planning an individual lesson, as the name says, is just for one class. So you look one class, you focus on that class, and then maybe you continue with, but with a different topic. So you don't have an exact sequence of topics, right? So they are not totally related, let's say, because they are individual, they are like personal classes, okay? Other questions, how can we start planning an individual lesson? We need to ask ourselves another time some of these questions. What is my overall aim? What do I mean with this? My aim is that in that class, in that specific class, students need to know the differences between regular and irregular verbs in past, period. I don't like that they produce because it's going to be just one class of 2 hours. So basically, I just want my students to analyze the difference so that they can see, they can identify the difference, but I don't want them to produce, not yet. Okay. Will the topic be interesting and motivating for my students? So in this case, as it is just one individual class, you need to be very focused on interests. Okay. What do I want my learners to have learned by the end of this lesson? What do I want? That they know the difference between regular and irregular, period. Are the activities and teaching materials at the right level of all learners? Okay, the level for this is going to be A2. So I think that it's correct. But if I have, let's imagine a C1 level, this is not correct. Not even the aim, because regular and irregulars for C1, maybe producing them, maybe, I don't know, write a letter or something in which they use the regular and irregular, but not for checking the differences. This is for basic levels. Okay. Have I planned enough for the time available? As it is an individual class, maybe I only have 1 hour, and in that hour, I need to make my students realize the differences. Okay. Do I need extra material? Yes, maybe I will show them a video in which they can see the differences. Do each stage in this lesson help to achieve the aim? Yes, because first they are going to watch a video. This video will last 5 minutes. After these 5 minutes, I will start explaining the differences for 10 minutes. Then we're going to do some exercises of filling gaps so that they can identify the differences. And finally, they are going to tell me in group, we're going to have a debate about talking about the differences. You see? So this is mainly what you need to remember about individual lessons. Okay? Yes, Francisco? So far, so good? Okay. Here we have a kind of an example of an individual lesson. Okay, here are two sets of notes from the procedure sections of lesson plans. One for a lesson introducing and practicing new language, and the other for a skill-based lesson. What difference can you see the overall shape of two types of lesson? As an individual lesson, Francisco, it's very important to look at the shape, to look at the form. Okay, what activities are you planning in order for your students to learn in just one session? Okay, so here we have an example of lesson 1, introducing new language. Please, Francisco, after I finish talking about this chart, I want you to write or to answer these questions. What differences can you see the overall shape of the two types of lesson? So for example, in number 1, warmer lead-in. This is the first activity. Students describe contrasting periods of two cities. Number 2, reading task. Students read article comparing the cities in the pictures. Number 3, focus on form. Students notice from used in text for comparison. Number 4, focus on form 2. Students that use rules for formation or comparative adjectives. Number 5, control practice. Students apply rules to complete worksheet exercises. Number 6, speaking task. In pairs, the student make further comparison based on pictures of different places. And finally, number 7, homework writing. Students produce a similar test comparing the second pair of pictures. Okay, so All these activities are going to be seen in one class. How much does the class last? I don't know. What is the classroom profile? I don't know either. What timing? Either. I don't know it. But I know the procedures. So I want you to tell me, Francisco, the shape of the procedures in comparison to the next lesson. Okay? Developing reading skills. Number one, warmer reading. Teacher asks students about topic, healthy eating. Number two, pre-teach vocabulary. Pairs complete worksheet. Number three, GIST. Reading task, test letter requesting advice. Identify addressee, magazine advice column. Number four, detailed reading task one. Text organization, students must jump to paragraphs summarized to the text. Number five, detailed reading task two. Sentence level comprehension, true, false, task. Number six, extension speaking, discussing, brainstorming, ideas to respond to letter, and finally seven, homework, writing reply to letter. Okay, so tell me, Francisco, I have already read. I hope you could have the time to analyze. What is the difference or the I don't know similarities between these two shapes of two lesson plans, procedures at least? Tell me, Francisco, what do you think? What happens in these two plans? Okay, you are telling me in the first plan it's to charge, but it's for an advanced group. In the second plan is for an intermediate level. Okay, I agree with you, Francisco, but I wanted more than that. I want you to focus on the form, the activities. I mean, like, what as teacher you're going to manage to get the number one, let's say the all the procedures, and in number two. Okay, so I mean, I don't know if I'm explaining myself. Like, what is the forming one? If it is more like, I don't know, like grammatical stuff, like accuracy, or more for the skills. What do I need to focus? I, as a teacher, what do I need to focus in the plans? Don't worry, Francisco. Don't be in the pressure. I can wait. I can wait. You hear me, Francisco? I think the internet. Hear me now, Francisco? Sorry, my internet connection has gone. Okay, very good. So we will continue. Okay, you said that in the first one we focus on accuracy, focus on form, and only in writing a skill. And in the second is focus on developing skills, reading, writing, and speaking. Very nice. That's what I wanted. Okay. So as I was telling you, because maybe you will have this question in the real test. Okay, so individual lesson, we need to be very aware of the shape, of the form of the class, if it is going to be, because you cannot control everything in just one class. Imagine that we have a class, only one class for module 2. Okay, so I obviously I will not be able to have all the activities. Maybe I will be the whole class talking, and my procedure will be more like informatic, right? Like reading for details, so that you can read everything, and then you can do an analyze, and that's it. Okay, so that's basically what you need to remember, Francisco, about this. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so here we go. Although language lessons vary in the sequence of stages, they always include attention to formal features of language, with tasks that give learners more or less controlled practice of particular structures. Skill-based lessons, however, aim at developing learners' abilities in receptive and or productive language skills, and rather than focusing on particular language items, they give learners the opportunity to work on specific sub-skills. Okay, so basically you have these two types, Francisco. If you are going to give an individual lesson planning, you need to think if it is more going to be more for accuracy, if you're going to be teaching more about grammar, about aspects of the language, such as pronunciation, fluency, and everything, or if you're going to be teaching skills, if you're going to be practicing reading, listening, obviously, sorry, obviously you can put them together. That's for sure. You can join them, but all the time you will need to focus your shape in one of those. You cannot have both of them like in the same range. Okay, so this is for individual lesson. Now let's start with sequence of lessons, which is normally what we have as teachers, right, Francisco? We normally have a sequence of the activities, of the things that we're been looking at. For example, in the first month, I don't know, you watch simple past. Second month, you watch past continuous. And in the third month, you analyze the contrast between past simple and past continuous. So that is basically sequence of lessons. Okay, topics, tasks, etc., that are related one each other, and that we continue and continue talking about. Okay, so here it says it's a number of related lessons that develop language knowledge and or language skill over a period of time. Sequences may develop a single topic or language area, or maybe both topics or language areas that are very closely connected. Here are three examples. Okay, we have three examples. A structural sequence, how you can have this sequence of structures. Revision, as I was telling, past simple. Revision 2, present perfect. Revision 3, contrast, past simple versus present perfect. So this is the structural sequence. Okay, so you don't look first at, I don't know, future perfect and then contrast future perfect with past simple. Nothing to do, right? One is in past and the other is in future. But in this case, you can contrast the past simple and the present perfect because they are somehow related. Okay, we can have other kind of integrations. For example, integrated skill sequence, vocabulary development, describing places, function describing. Number 2, reading, choosing a holiday. Number 3, writing, holiday experience, function, narrating. Okay, first you look at the vocabulary, descriptions, adjectives, etc. Then you start reading about choosing a holiday. So you have an input, you have something to see. And finally, you are going to give a project in which your students are going to talk about holidays experiences, so that they can connect what you saw in first one and what you saw in second one. Okay, project work sequence, reading and listening about free time activities, class survey and research, sport and entertainment. So then they are going to make a research, they are going to make some questions to their classmates, and so on. And finally, between all of them, they are going to prepare a poster display and show results of survey about free time activities. So this is basically an exposition. Okay, Francisco, so this is mainly the difference between sequence and individual class. In an individual class, you don't continue. It is not a cyclical kind of classroom. Like you look, you go further, and then you come back. And then you go further and you come back. Okay, so in individual, you need to go, you start a topic, you finish a topic. Then you start another topic and you finish another topic, which is not very related to the first one, and so on. So no problems, Francisco, about this, about sequence of lessons. Is everything clear? Okay, now, how can I start planning a sequence of lessons? A scheme of work helps us plan a sequence of lessons in the best way to cover the school syllabus or the units of a course book in the time available. It also helps us to think about what we want to achieve and what materials we might need. Okay, so you can start planning your sequence of lessons by a scheme, like in this one. First, as you can see, we have the weeks, week 3, week 4, week 5, and week 6, depending on your course, depending on your syllabus. Okay, okay, scheme one, here we have, for example, what topics you're going to be looking. In week 3, we're going to be focused on grammar and vocabulary. So all the input. Then in number 4, we're going to look at listening and speaking. So we have input, but at the same time, we start with output. In week number 3, we have reading and writing. Okay, another time we have an input and then write. And finally, in week 6, we're going to be focused on the test. Of everything that we saw here, we're going to go further the test. Okay, scheme note letter B. Okay, this is like very general, as you can see. You just write grammar, vocabulary, listening, speaking, etc. In scheme B, you need to explain a little bit more. Okay, grammar, yes, but how you're going to look grammar? For example, grammar revision, past tenses. Vocabulary, what kind of vocabulary? Well, vocabulary related to free activities, free time activities. Okay, and exercises from the book, which is not here. It's part of grammar, but it's not mentioned in part A. Okay. Part B. Okay, listening and speaking. But what about the listening and speaking? Well, you're going to recheck vocabulary. Okay, you're going to look at reading emails, speaking fluency activities, especially fluency. Okay, you are going to practice speaking. But what kind of speaking? Fluency. Okay, reading and writing. Quick revision, work from weeks 3 and 4. Holiday. Okay, now we know that we're going to have like kind of the revision, but now with reading. Uh-huh. Grammar focus, reported speech, writing report story. And finally, the test. What is the test about? Well, it's an speaking role play. It's not a written test, it's an oral test. And then we're going to have feedback. Okay. And in the scheme letter C, you are more detailed. Okay. Okay, grammar, yes, revision of past tenses, but how you're going to revise it. Class discussion of the advantages and disadvantages of living in a city. Revise and expand vocabulary. Focus on comparative and superlative adjectives and adverbs. Practice exercise. Okay, so now you're going to look at vocabulary, but now in this way. Reading. Personal stories, student ordered as sections of text. Focus on form organization. Writing, students' own stories. Okay, the next one, listening, song of a group, grammar game. Okay, so as you can see, Francisco, in scheme letter C, you are more like procedures. Uh-huh. These are more like what activities are you going to complete? So this has to do more with procedures. These have more to do with analysis from scheme A, okay, which are basically the skills, the sub skills, the subsidiary aims. Okay, Francisco, so this is good when you want to start planning a sequence of lessons. Okay, so I will continue. Yes, Francisco, no, do you have a problem or a question? All right. Now, how detailed should a scheme work be? Schemes or work are not as detailed as lesson plans, so please don't get confused, Francisco. Schemes are not lesson planning. Schemes are another way to help you to organize your sequence of lessons, but that's it. They are not lesson plans. Why not? Well, for example, a very detailed scheme of work like example C gives us clear sense of direction, but it is often difficult to predict how learners needs develop. So we may need to change the scheme. So, for example, in lesson plan, you have the one of the solutions and possible problems, right? Possible solutions and possible problems. So, and in the scheme C, okay, it's good. You have the activities and everything. But let's imagine that your students cannot write stories because they don't know simple past. So it is not here, but in your lesson plan, yes, the anticipated problem and the solution. So now you say, okay, one solution is to show them a video. Show them a video so that they can remember because they know it, but they don't remember it. So I wish I will put up a video and then they will look at it. But in this case, it's not explain it. Mhm. So it just says students write own stories. You see what I mean, Francisco? So even though it is very helpful, it won't be as helpful as a real lesson plan. Okay? And now, finally, Francisco, to finish with this topic, we're going to see at the role of variety. What is variety? Variety is very important for both in single lesson and sequence of lessons. It helps keep learners interested and involved. So in this case, put the styles for, but for example, a list of how you can write all this is like, imagine that you have very visual students. So one day you can show them like, I don't know, a video. Then the other day you will show them pictures. The other day you will do some mimic and they will look at you and so on. Okay, so that's variety. In this case, variety, it's very important. I don't know why the list didn't appear, but anyway. So just keep in mind, Francisco, that you need to vary your activities. In any case, if you're going to developing skills, you need to vary the skills. If you're going to be developing the the language aspects, you need to vary the activities, not always the same. Otherwise, even though you have individual classes or you have a sequence of lessons, they won't work. Okay? Very good, Francisco. Are you okay now? Do you have a questions about this difference between individual and sequence of lessons? What kind of classes do you have, Francisco? Do you think that you have individual or you have a sequence of lessons? Something that go beyond and sometimes you need to recover and look again and so on. What kind of classes do you individual or sequence of lessons? No project work? What do you mean? Any of them? Okay, which one then? Which of these planning do you have? Ah, okay, you work in projects. Okay, very good, Francisco. So you have like a combination, a mixture of these two. Very good. Now I got it. Sorry, it's because I didn't see it. Very good, Francisco. So I can see that you have mostly like the TPP, like sorry, the PPP, practice, presentation, practice, and production, right? Because you present, you give the topic, then you do the practice, and then the production is a project, right? Very good, Francisco. So nice. So nice. Ah, okay, so you have more small pieces. Got it. So you don't have only like these three steps, you have more, right? You have, for example, one slowly once a week class. Yes, I know. Okay, Francisco, very good. Now we're gonna go further with the extra activity. Okay, this activity will help you with the real test. The lesson plan below aims to introduce and practice language for describing people. Put the stages of the lesson from A to G into the correct order from 1 to 7. One stage has been done for you. So you have here the presentation. I don't know what the form is. Maybe it's more structural. Maybe it's more for skills. I don't know. Maybe it's an individual lesson or maybe it's a sequence of lessons. The point here is that you need to order the the activities. Let's say the form of this lesson plan. We have the number 3. Okay, comprehension, matching pictures to spoken descriptions. Okay, so with this, Francisco, you will complete the order per each of them. Okay, so think of this, think of the form, think of what you need to present, how you need to present it, the introduction, then the body of the skills, if they are productive, if they are receptive. Remember that we mostly begin with receptive skills so that later on we can produce. Mhm. So remember all that, Francisco. So good luck. I'm going to give you maximum 10 minutes to do it, Francisco. So go ahead, please. No questions? Can you start now? Okay, start now, Francisco, please. 10 minutes. Okay, Francisco, are you ready? So here we got your answers. Okay, we have letter A for you is number one. I like that. Present new vocabulary. So presentation for you B, it's number five. Okay, let's go with number two first. For you, number two is letter G. Listening to descriptions of people to contextualize. Okay, so the keyword maybe here is contextualize, right? Number three, we already know have it. Number four for you, it's letter F. No, no. For you, number four, it's letter E, right? Ah, yes. Letter E. Control practice, describe and draw activity per word. For you, number five, it's letter B. Video, TV, police drama, consolidate listening and speaking activities and provide models for freer oral work. Okay, so you are starting with the speaking, right? Okay, so and then they can have an example of this. So it sounds good for me, but I don't know. Let's see to Cambridge later on. Number six for you, it's F, writing descriptions of people and places. Could be, although if I have already seen the video, maybe I would choose first the speaking role play. Maybe, maybe. But let's see. Okay, no, then for you, number seven, it's letter C, the speaking, and that's it, right? Okay, I like your answers. Just like maybe the one that I told you about the speaking and writing. I'm not sure which one will be first, but let's analyze it. Okay. So number one, as you said, you are correct. Number two, you are also correct. Very nice. Three, it's done for us. Number four, excellent, Francisco. It's letter E. Number five, B, excellent. But as I was telling you, letter six in number six. In my case, I agree with Cambridge. It's more speaking role play. As you saw the video, you can use this in order to produce something, and maybe the writing is letter seven. Even you can have it for homework, okay, because they have already practiced and they have already watched the video and everything, so they can start doing that for homework maybe. Yes, Francisco. So just these two small changes, but that's okay. All right. So this is mainly about planning, about individual. What do you think, Francisco? This is more like an individual or a sequence of lessons? What do you think? What kind of planning is this one? Or maybe it can be both. Yes, it's more like an individual, right? Because I don't see any context like sentences or something that says, because they have already seen past simple, or I cannot see like a specific grammar topic. So it's just maybe for that class. Maybe I the time. Sorry, you still have time. So yes, it's maybe something like for a specific content, and that's it, which is more for police interviews. Maybe it's a course for policemen, and it's only one class. Maybe I don't know. Okay. So now let's go with the sample test, Francisco. I hope it's clear in your computer. Remember, you can do some zoom over there so that you can look properly. Okay, so the sample test. For questions from 1 to 6, read the two steps from each lesson plan and choose the next step from the option listed A, B, and C. As I told you, the previous class will help me because you ordered them. So in this case, it's the same. You have like two things, two procedures, and you need to choose the third one. Okay, it can be from individual or it can be from sequence of lesson planning. Okay, so for example, we have the number one. Number one, learners listen to a dialogue between two friends. They listen again and answer truthful questions. And then we have three options. The learners check their answers in pairs. The learners have a whole class discuss about friendship. Or letters C, the teacher checks understanding of instructions. Okay, so you do in this case there is not much help, Francisco. You need to be very aware. Maybe you can relate this to your real classes. Maybe that can help you. Or maybe you can remember what we look about the procedures, about everything of this. Because some of these, unfortunately, we are not specified if they are for individual or if they are sequence of lessons. Okay, so you're going to have again, Francisco, 10 minutes to do it. So are you ready to start? Okay, start now. Good luck, Francisco. I expect one more time all of them correct. I know that you can do it. You are very, very lucky today. So go ahead, please, Francisco, and good luck. Let me conceal the time. That's okay, Francisco. So you have your answers. Let's analyze them. Okay, number one for you, it's A. The learners check their answer pairs. Yes, I agree with you because they have done an activity, so you cannot leave the activity like that. Okay. Number two for you, it's letter B. The learners put the empty into rank order because they were working in pairs and they use a list of items, right? For sort of a survival island. Maybe now what they need to do is to put them in order. Could be, although it can also have the learners write a story about life on the island. Okay, but I don't know. Everything can happen. We don't have much help. Number three for you is letter C. The teacher writes the story on the board as the learners dictated to her. Because they are going to learn a story, right? Then they are going to retell the story in pairs. And for you, Francisco, in the end, they are going to tell the story to the teacher. Maybe. Mhm. Okay, now number four, the learners listen to the teacher telling a story about friendship. In groups, the learners work together to tell the story again. And for you, in this case, the next procedure is letter B. The learners write the story. Okay, could be write the story about the friendship, their own friendship, right? Okay, number five for this letter C, the teacher asks for individual repetition because he models the target language first, then he repeats. Okay, could be. Don't you think is that the teacher introduces new vocabulary? Maybe because he said the target language, then he repeats. Now he introduces. Now this vocabulary is for this and this and this. Maybe I'm not sure, but maybe you are right. And for you, finally, letter C, six. Summary number six is letter A. The letter listens to a description of three people and draw them. The teacher elicits the vocabulary she used in the description and writes it on the board, and the learners label their pictures. Could be, could be. Okay, very good. This was a difficult exam, right, Francisco? But I think you did it very well. Okay, one more time, Francisco. I think you have all of them correct. Number one A, number two B, number three C, number four B, number five C, and number six A. Francisco, what did you eat today? You are at the 100. You got the perfect mark in the previous one, and now one more time. I think you are a master in lesson planning. You have a master degree, right? That's why. Okay, so very good, Francisco. Congratulations. How do you feel that you got all of them right? Maybe you will get a band number four in this in module two, Francisco. You know a lot about teaching. I'm surprised. Yeah, probably you will get it in all the modules, but I think module two is the one that you must take now, right? Like forget about module one, go further with module two. Just kidding. Okay, very good. Now, okay, I think we don't have enough time to look at the next topic. The next topic is quite short, but I think it will stop here because we only have like 5 minutes. So next topic, we're going to finish it next class. And at the same time, Francisco, next class, we're going to be starting talking about resources. Okay, so on Wednesday we're going to finish with planning. We're just missing one topic, but as I was telling you, it's very quickly. So we're going to spend like 30 minutes only, and then we're going to start talking about resources for language teaching. Okay, Francisco. So I hope you enjoyed today's class, and see you on Wednesday. Is that right, Francisco, for you? And I will try we can work further. So please, Francisco, I like to ask you to be punctual so we can take advantage of the complete classes. All right. And by the way, have you done your test for module one, the sample test? because remember that we're going to be checking the answers on Friday. Not yet, okay, Francisco, don't worry. You still have time. You have today, tomorrow, and Wednesday and Thursday to do it. And even Friday, maybe Friday, I don't know, 1 hour before the class, okay? For me, there is no problem. The thing is that remember that you need to find time of 1 hour. No, sorry. Yeah, basically 80 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes. So take your time and be alone, be concentrated, and that's it. Okay, I'm sure you will, Francisco. I'm sure you will. And well, let's wait for the teachers. I hope they can join us this week. And if not, they must be watching the videos. Okay. So thank you very much, Francisco. Have a nice evening and see you on Wednesday. Bye. No, thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.